My brother stole my inheritance while I supported him through college, so I took legal action and left him with nothing he could ever recover. I'm a 29-year-old guy, and for as long as I can remember, I've been the one holding my family together with duct tape, quiet sacrifice, and whatever strength I could scrape together after work. It feels strange admitting that out loud, but it's the truth. I was the one paying overdue bills, running to fix emergencies, and stepping in every time someone dropped the ball. Meanwhile, my younger brother Ethan floated through life like some charming little comet everyone adored, leaving behind a trail of disasters I was expected to clean up. People would laugh and say, "Oh, that's just Ethan," while looking at me like I was the built-in safety net he was entitled to. And somehow, for years, I accepted that role. Ethan had this smile, the kind that made people forgive him before he even apologized, and he weaponized it without ever admitting he was doing so. My relatives used to gush, "He's going to be something big one day," even when he failed classes or skipped responsibilities, while I stood in the background handing over cash or stepping into problems so quietly no one even noticed. I spent high school working late shifts after football practice just to cover groceries when my parents struggled, then pushed through college with 2 jobs so the lights at home never got shut off. There were nights I'd fall asleep still wearing my work apron, smelling like fryer grease and exhaustion. But I held on to one thing for myself, an inheritance account my grandfather set up before he died. He told me quietly one night, "You're the only one who steps up. This is for your future. Don't let anyone touch it." I never told Ethan about it. I never told anyone. Still, I should have known better. Because the people you protect the most are sometimes the ones who learn exactly where your weak points are, and Ethan, whether by accident or by practice, had always known how to press mine. And eventually, he pressed one I never thought he'd dare to touch. I've always believed that when you love someone, family or not, you support them through the messy parts of figuring life out, and for years, I thought that was what I was doing for Ethan. He bounced between majors like he was trying on personalities, business one semester, psychology the next, then something vague like creative media, because he liked the sound of it. Every time he hit a wall, he'd call me with that same shaky exhale and say, "Bro, I just need a little help until I get back on my feet." And every time, I'd rub my eyes after a 12-hour shift and mutter, "All right, Ethan. This is the last time," knowing damn well it wasn't. I covered half his tuition during one semester he forgot to apply for aid, and when his landlord threatened eviction, I was the one transferring money at 2 a.m. while sitting on the edge of my bed in the dark. I remember telling him, "You need to start taking responsibility," and he'd shoot back with something like, "I'm trying, okay? You don't get how stressful this is." Somehow, he always flipped things to make me feel guilty for questioning him. It was a skill, almost like he'd perfected emotional jiu-jitsu. My parents didn't help either. My mom would whisper, "Ethan's under a lot of pressure, he's the creative one," like creativity gave him immunity from accountability. My dad once said, "Invest in your brother now, and he'll take care of you one day." That line stuck with me longer than it should have, mainly because I wanted to believe it. I wanted to believe all the money, time, and peace I was pouring into him would someday mean something. But somewhere along the way, the support stopped feeling like love and started feeling like obligation, like I was financing a fantasy he never intended to wake up from. And while I kept working, kept saving, kept planning for a stable future, I didn't realize Ethan had already started planning something of his own. Something he wouldn't even warn me about. Something that would hit harder than anything he'd ever asked for before. I wish I could say there was a single moment where I realized things were off, but honestly, it was more like a slow drip I kept ignoring because admitting it meant facing something ugly about my family. Ethan had this pattern, he'd call me talking about stress and pressure, but I'd hear music and laughter in the background, the muted thump of parties he swore he wasn't going to anymore. One night, I confronted him gently and said, "Are you actually going to class?" And he laughed, this careless, airy sound, and replied, "Relax, man. Life isn't supposed to be all work." I remember staring at the phone afterward, realizing I couldn't even picture him sitting in a lecture hall anymore. I didn't want to believe it, but denial was easier than accepting that my sacrifices were funding his recklessness. My parents fueled the illusion every chance they got. My mom would say, "Your brother just needs time. He's brilliant, you know that," while handing me another envelope of overdue bills I'd end up paying. My dad would mutter, "He's sensitive, don't push him," as if Ethan might shatter under the weight of basic expectations. I'd look around at the cluttered living room, smell the faint scent of burned tea my mom forgot on the stove, and think, why am I the only one who has to be strong? The first real fracture came the day Ethan asked to borrow my debit card. He claimed his was glitched, waving it dramatically like it was a victim of injustice. Just for a week, he promised, tapping his hand on his chest like he was swearing an oath. Against my better judgment, I handed it over, but something in me tightened, a little knot of unease I couldn't shake. He returned the card, but things felt wrong. Like he'd crossed an invisible boundary I didn't even know was there. And I didn't realize then that he wasn't just glancing into my life, he was studying it, learning the seams, figuring out where things could be pried open. And soon, he'd pry open something I never thought he'd touch. My grandfather was the only person who ever really saw me, and sometimes I think that's why he pulled me aside a few months before he died and told me something he never told anyone else. I remember sitting with him on his porch, the wood creaking under our chairs, the air smelling like dust and late summer heat. His voice was weaker than I wanted to admit, but he still looked me straight in the eye when he said, "You've carried enough for this family. This is for you, not for them." At the time, I didn't fully understand what he meant, I was too focused on the way his hands trembled slightly as he squeezed mine. But after he passed, I learned he had left me a private inheritance account, something separate, something protected, something meant to finally give me the security I'd never had. The account wasn't life-changing money, but it was the first thing in my name that wasn't tied to someone else's crisis. It had layers of security, a PIN only I knew, a two-step verification that pinged my phone, and a handwritten letter he left with the lawyer explaining why I deserved it. I guarded it like a secret. I never told Ethan. I never told my parents. I didn't even write the login details anywhere, everything stayed in my head. It felt like the one part of my life no one else could touch. Some nights when I came home late from work, bone-tired and smelling of detergent from the laundromat I closed up, I'd check the account just to remind myself I wasn't completely trapped. The quiet glow of my phone screen in the dark felt like a promise, one day, you'll have something for yourself. One day, you'll be free. But peace like that never lasts long in families like mine. And if I had known that Ethan had already begun paying attention to things I never thought he'd notice, I would have realized the storm wasn't on the horizon anymore, it was already forming right over my head. The morning everything shifted didn't feel dramatic at first, it was one of those quiet, gray mornings where the world feels half asleep and you move through it on autopilot. I remember reaching for my phone, still groggy, expecting to see the usual work emails or Ethan's late night, "Bro, can you help me real quick," messages. Instead, what I saw made my stomach drop so fast I swear I felt the air leave my chest. 5 failed login attempts on my inheritance account. My thumb hovered over the notification, my heart beating so loudly it felt like it echoed in my skull. For a moment, I told myself it was some glitch, maybe a system error, anything other than what I already feared. I sat up, rubbing my hands over my face, whispering, "No, no, no, no," as if saying it quietly could undo it. The air in my room felt thick and cold, like someone had opened a window I didn't notice, and I suddenly felt exposed in my own space. I clicked deeper into the alert. The attempts had happened around 2:13 a.m., the exact hour Ethan was usually awake, scrolling or gaming or God knows what. Still, I tried to reason with myself, anyone could have tried this. It doesn't mean anything. Don't jump to conclusions. But then, later that day, Ethan casually asked me something that turned my blood to ice. He leaned against the kitchen counter, munching on cereal like he owned the place, and said, "Hey, is that account Grandpa left you still, like, active?" Just like that. Like we'd talked about it before. Like it wasn't a sacred secret. My head jerked up so fast I almost dropped the glass I was washing. What account? I asked, too quickly, too sharply. He shrugged. Mom mentioned you were hiding money. Chill, I was just curious. That word, hiding, echoed in my mind long after he left the room. And it was in that moment, staring at the sink full of cloudy water, that I realized this wasn't curiosity. It was the first warning sign that something had already begun behind my back. There are moments in life that split everything into before and after, and for me, it happened the second I opened my inheritance account and felt the world go silent around me. I remember sitting at my desk, the late afternoon light slanting across the floor, warm but somehow cold against my skin. My hands were shaking so badly I had to steady my phone against the edge of the table. And then I saw it, balance, $0. Not low. Not missing a few dollars. Completely empty. For a full minute, I couldn't breathe. I kept refreshing the page like maybe reality would glitch back into something I recognized, but every time the same number stared back at me, mocking me with its finality. My voice cracked when I whispered, "No, no, this can't be real." The room felt smaller, the air tighter, the sound of my heartbeat drowning out everything else. I clicked into the transaction history and that's when it got even worse. The withdrawals weren't recent, they had been happening in small amounts for months, just subtle enough that I never noticed. I called the bank, my words stumbling out in gasps. The representative on the other end confirmed the nightmare. The funds were transferred to another personal account, under an authorized profile reset. What authorized reset? I asked, gripping the edge of my desk until my fingers hurt. She hesitated before answering, "Sir, the reset was completed using your security verification, full name, date of birth, family details, and the last 4 digits of your old phone number." Family details. The phrase hit me like a punch. When I confronted my parents that night, my mother's face went pale before she even spoke. She stammered, "Ethan was worried you were hiding money, he said he just needed help." My father muttered, "Don't make this a big deal. He's going through things. He'll pay it back." But the truth settled in my chest like a stone. Ethan hadn't just stolen from me, he had planned it, step by step, with information only someone inside the family could give him. And I had no idea the betrayal was about to get even uglier. I confronted Ethan the same night, fueled by rage, disbelief, and the kind of heartbreak that makes your voice shake even when you're trying to sound strong. He was sitting on the couch, legs kicked up, scrolling on his phone like he didn't have a care in the world. When I said, "You stole my inheritance," he didn't even flinch, he just looked at me with this lazy smirk and said, "Relax. That money was just sitting there. I'm using it to build something real." Those words cut deeper than I expected, like he wasn't just stealing money, he was stealing the meaning behind every sacrifice I'd ever made. I stepped closer, my hands trembling, and said, "You had no right. Grandpa left that for me." Ethan rolled his eyes, tossed his phone aside, and replied, "He left it for the family. You're just too selfish to admit it." Hearing him twist the truth like that made the room tilt. I felt something unravel inside me, some last thread of hope that he'd feel even a shred of guilt. But what broke me was my parents' reaction. My mom stepped between us, her voice cracking as she said, "Please don't punish your brother for making a mistake." My father added, "You've always had more stability. Ethan needs this. Needs this." That was their justification for grand theft. I stared at them, my heart pounding, the air thick with the sour smell of the dinner they hadn't bothered to clean up. "He stole from me," I whispered, but it felt like no one heard it. Like I was invisible. Like I always had been. Ethan crossed his arms and added, "You should be proud, man. I'm investing in my future. When I make it big, you'll thank me." That was the moment something inside me snapped, not loudly, not violently, but quietly. Devastatingly. Like a bridge giving out under too much weight. Because for the first time in my life, I realized I wasn't just alone in the fight, I was surrounded by people who believed I deserved to lose. And the worst part was, we were still nowhere near the bottom. I didn't sleep that night. I just lay there staring at the ceiling, replaying Ethan's smug expression, my parents' excuses, and the weight of knowing every sacrifice I'd ever made had been twisted into something ugly. By morning, my chest felt tight, my eyes burned, and the silence in my apartment felt heavier than usual, like even the air didn't want to move. I kept hearing my grandfather's voice in my head, that quiet warning, "This is for you. Not for them." And with my stomach churning, I realized that if I didn't protect what was mine now, I'd lose more than money, I'd lose myself completely. I walked into the law office that afternoon feeling like an imposter, like someone pretending to be stronger than he really was. The receptionist's click of the keyboard echoed in the quiet room, mixing with the faint scent of coffee and printer ink. When the attorney called my name, I followed him to his office, my palms sweating, my throat dry. "What brings you in?" he asked gently. I took a shaky breath and said, "My brother stole my inheritance, and my parents helped him." Even saying the words felt surreal. As I laid everything out, the withdrawals, the failed login attempts, the verification reset, the confrontation, the attorney's face hardened. "This isn't some family misunderstanding," he said. "This is identity exploitation and financial theft. And it's prosecutable." Hearing that made something inside me shift. For the first time since this nightmare began, someone wasn't telling me to be the bigger person. Someone wasn't minimizing what happened. He told me to gather every screenshot, every bank record, every message, anything that could prove the pattern. "Build the whole picture," he said. "People like your brother count on you being too emotional to fight back. Too emotional. Too responsible. Too forgiving." I walked out of that office feeling a strange mix of fear and clarity. The cool evening wind hit my face, and the city noise around me sounded sharper, almost echoing the truth I'd been avoiding. Because deep down, I knew this was only the beginning. And once I took the next step, there would be no turning back. I thought things were finally beginning to make sense after speaking to the attorney, but I had no idea how quickly everything would collapse. The night I told my parents I was taking legal action, they showed up at my apartment unannounced, banging on the doors so loudly my neighbors peeked through their peepholes. When I opened it, my mom rushed inside crying, her hands shaking as she grabbed my arm and said, "Please don't do this, you'll destroy your brother." My dad followed behind her, his jaw clenched, the smell of cigarette smoke clinging to him. The guilt hit me like a wave, but underneath it was something darker, exhaustion, betrayal, anger that felt carved into my ribs. My mom's voice cracked as she said, "Ethan made a mistake. A mistake. Don't ruin his life over money." "Money?" I said, my voice rising despite myself. "He stole everything Grandpa left me." She flinched but didn't let go of my arm. "He needed it more. You're stable. You always have been. You'll recover." There it was, the truth laid bare, my pain was acceptable collateral. My dad stepped forward, his tone cold and sharp. "You're acting selfish. Dragging the family name through the mud because your ego is hurt. You're better than this." I laughed, this ugly, broken laugh I didn't recognize. "Selfish? I've paid your bills. I kept this family afloat. I supported him through college. And he robbed me. But they didn't care. Not really." As they left, my phone buzzed with a long message from Ethan. "You're pathetic. You think a lawyer makes you tough. You'll never win. And when this blows up, don't come crying to me." Each word felt like glass under my skin. I sat in my car afterward, the engine off, the cold air pressing in around me. The streetlights blurred through my tears until everything looked washed out, unreal. I had never felt so alone, not just abandoned, but erased, like my feelings didn't matter, like my entire life had been built on a lie. That was my rock bottom, the moment I realized my family didn't just betray me, they never saw me at all. And the only way out now, was through the fire. The morning after everything fell apart, I woke up feeling hollow, like someone had scooped out the inside of my chest and left only the shell behind. But beneath that numbness, something colder was forming. Not anger. Not grief. Resolve. For the first time in my life, I wasn't going to be the dependable one who sacrificed everything to keep the peace. I was done bleeding so everyone else could stay comfortable. I spread out every document I had on my dining table, bank statements, screenshots, old text messages, login alerts, even the time-stamped verification emails I never realized were warnings. The room was quiet except for the hum of the refrigerator, and the harsh overhead light made everything look sterile, clinical, like evidence in a crime lab. I remember whispering, "If I don't protect myself, nobody will." It was the truest sentence I'd spoken in weeks. When I met with the attorney again, he scanned through my printouts and nodded slowly. "This is a strong case," he said. "Your brother didn't just take the money, he manipulated security protocols. That's intentional." I swallowed hard. "And my parents helped him." He didn't flinch. "Family involvement doesn't make it any less illegal." Hearing that felt like someone finally putting words to the wound in my chest. The deeper we dug, the worse it got. The attorney discovered that Ethan hadn't just guessed my security answers, he'd changed recovery settings using information my mother gave him. Dates. Addresses. Old phone numbers. Things only she would remember. There was a paper trail of digital fingerprints leading directly to him. "We can pursue both civil damages and criminal charges," the attorney said, sliding a packet toward me. "But once we file, things will escalate fast. Be prepared." I nodded, my throat tight but steady. "I'm ready." When the formal notice went out, Ethan called me within minutes. His voice, usually cocky, was trembling. "Dude, what the hell did you do?" I didn't answer. I just listened to him panic, breathe hard, swear under his breath. And for the first time, he was the one spiraling, not me. But the consequences were only beginning to hit. The fallout hit faster than I expected. The moment Ethan received the legal notice, the swagger drained out of him like someone had punctured a balloon. He called me 3 times back to back, his voice cracking with a panic I had never heard before. "Bro, listen, I didn't mean for it to get this far," he stammered. "We can work something out, right? Just, drop the charges." Hearing him scared instead of smug should have given me satisfaction, but all it did was twist something in my chest. Because a part of me still wished he had apologized before a court forced him to. My parents switched sides faster than a flipped coin. Suddenly, my mom was texting me long paragraphs about how she never agreed with Ethan taking the money, conveniently forgetting she defended him every step of the way. My dad left a voicemail saying, "We just want peace in the family," like I was the one who shattered it. It was surreal watching them rewrite the narrative in real time, desperately trying to paint themselves as innocent bystanders when they'd handed him the weapon he used to rob me. But the legal process didn't care about their theatrics. The evidence was too clear, too organized, too damning. Ethan's withdrawals, the reset attempts, the IP logs, the verified transfers, every piece fell into place like a puzzle spelling out the truth. He was forced to return every stolen dollar. Then came the penalties, the fines, and the academic investigation triggered by the financial misconduct. His internship offer, something he bragged about non-stop, was rescinded within a week. The school put him on academic probation. His reputation tanked. He sent me one more message during that spiral: "You ruined my life." It hurt more than I expected. Because he still didn't get it. He ruined mine first. And yet, even with the legal victory, even with the money coming back, even with Ethan finally facing consequences, something inside me still felt unfinished. Like justice wasn't the same as closure. And I wasn't done walking away, not yet. When the dust finally settled, I moved into a small but beautiful apartment across town, the kind of place with clean lines, quiet hallways, and morning light that spills across the floor in soft gold. I paid for the down payment using the recovered inheritance and part of the settlement Ethan was forced to give me. As I unpacked dishes in my new kitchen, I realized my hands weren't shaking anymore. For the first time in my adult life, I wasn't waiting for a crisis, a phone call, or a guilt trip. The silence felt peaceful, not empty, not lonely, just finally mine. I didn't tell my parents my new address. They tried calling a few times, leaving messages dripping with rehearsed regret. "We want our family back together," my mom said in one. My dad added, "Holding on to anger isn't healthy." Neither of them apologized for what they'd done, only for the consequences they now had to live with. And that's when it really hit me, they didn't miss me. They missed what I did for them. So I blocked their numbers and let the distance grow. Months passed before Ethan reached out, but when he did, it was in the most predictable way possible, late at night, from a new number. "Hey. I'm at rock bottom," he wrote. "I need help turning things around. You're still my brother, right?" I stared at that message for a long time, the glow of my phone the only light in the room. I thought about every bill I paid, every excuse I accepted, every sleepless night I spent cleaning up his messes. And then I thought about the moment he stole from me without a second thought, convinced I'd forgive him like always. This time, I didn't reply. Because the truth is, my greatest revenge wasn't the lawsuit or the penalties or the way his reputation fell apart. It was that I finally stopped being the person he could drain without consequences. I finally chose myself. And walking away, not with anger, not with bitterness, but with clarity, was the moment I realized I had broken the cycle he always expected me to stay trapped in. And for the first time, it felt like freedom.